All right, we got replayable versus unreplayable games from Taishu. Hopefully, I didn't butcher that.
HowLongToBeat.com says that Resident Evil 7 takes the median player about 10 hours to finish the game. Me personally, I beat it in about 8, and my first playthrough was actually quite thorough. I wanted to
Nice.
collect all the powerful guns,
I still haven't played this game. I know it's really good, but like the thing with this game, like Resident Evil 7, is this is like one of the best, if not the best, like VR experiences you could have as far as like a video game goes. Because when this game first came out, and I watched like a couple people play it or whatever, and there is a really stark difference between someone that plays the game in VR versus someone that just turns it on and just mouse and keyboards it. Like when you're playing this thing in VR, you are taking the game way slower. You're looking under everything. You're trying to find every little nook and cranny and item and everywhere. It- because the whole idea of this is like essentially you're like in a very like small area, and within that small area I think the devs did a fantastic job of just cramming as much character into like the house and the environment as they did. It's like I think it's awesome.
fair portion of the bobbleheads and antique coins, and I felt like I took my time without just dawdling around. But then I went back again, and again. I did challenge runs, I collected all the collectibles, played
Nice.
through all the difficulties, completed all the DLC, and got all the achievements.
Oh dang.
That took me about 85 hours, and
Oh,
I just absolutely love this game to pieces, man.
good games make you want to play them over and over again. That's just a characteristic of good games.
Despite its linear, relatively short campaign, I've poured so much time into Resident Evil 7 that it is actually crazy. Now, let's bring our attention to the game Little Nightmares, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I have played through this game once, and it took me about 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And then I never played it again. It
Okay.
was fun, but it didn't strike me as something I wanted to experience again. Today, we're talking replayability. Most video games are always pushing for replay value, with
Yeah.
tons of extra content bundled in the game. Sometimes I'll decide I want to 100% a game, but then I'll actually start getting at that goal and realize that the optional stuff wasn't implemented so you could experience every exciting aspect of the game, but
Yeah.
rather just to pad it out and justify pricing. It's like a hamburger, right? You know, most hamburgers have some sort of filler in them, whether it be breadcrumbs or an egg or something.
Mm-hmm.
There are some burgers that are just super lean and delicious and have next to no filler in them at all. And then you also have ones that have a decent amount of filler in them and still taste great as well.
Yeah.
But if you bite into a burger and just taste breadcrumbs with no meat, then you have an issue.
Yeah.
Things get more confusing when all the different replayability factors are in the mix, so let's just start by establishing the single player standard. Most games with
And I think the whole like padding of a game time versus meaningful, I don't know, side quests if you will, that's going to be up to like the player to determine whether or not it's good enough really, because I will talk to one person and they will think one way about like the main story and side quests, and I'll talk to another person and they will just think the complete opposite of it. Like they wouldn't, like one person could think like the side quests are like really good and you know about the same quality as like main quests, but I'll talk to someone else that they just don't even do the side quest because it's like, it's a side quest, it's whatever.
a campaign go like this. You have a main path and some side content.
Yeah.
This could be in the form of optional missions, collectibles, extra modes, and the list goes on. Too often, I'll forget the sheer amount of extra content that games pack in is usually
Yeah.
straight up exhausting. I had to play through Dark Souls
The sheer amount of side content is just exhausting. Well, I don't know. For certain games, I think you have to change your mindset, essentially. Like something like Skyrim, like yes, you have like your main quest line, but there's so much side content. I think it's like just as good as like the main content or something like that, or something like Borderlands 2 with all the DLC and all the side quests. I think they're just as good as the main story. I guess it's honestly it's gonna depend between, or it really depends on the company and the IP and how much you can sense that the devs put like time and effort into the side quests and shit as much as like the main story.
Souls 3 thrice just to get all the achievements.
Nice.
Do you know how draining that is?
No.
If you spent hours on this staircase just for that one fucking Covenant item.
What the fuck is this? Proof of a Concord Keep. Okay. Extremely rare drop from Silver Knights in Anorlando and Irithil of the Boreal Valley. 1%. A blood-drained sunken ear souvenir taken for subduing the guilty. Damn. Oh, hey, at least it's not like a 0.1% drop chance, dude.
Item, I have nothing but respect for you. Now, it's natural that the average player would look at that grind and go, fuck that, I'm not doing all that bullshit.
Yeah.
And that is very fair. But honestly, I really enjoyed 100%ing Dark Souls 3, because it quite simply allowed me to keep playing the game and experiencing new stuff even after I finished the story.
I mean, as far as achievements go, I think, me personally, you can like divide them up into like different buckets, more or less. Like, there are some achievements where it'll be simply just get through the main story, and that's about 50 to 60% of the achievements, and it's like, okay, great. Then it's like, okay, you go New Game Plus, you up the difficulty, and then okay, maybe maybe the completion rate went up to like 75 to like 80% or something. So then you got that, and then there will be like another chunk of percents, or there'll be like other achievements where they're like skill checks or time sinks, or like in that case, like it's just like a gamble machine, 1% drop chance. Essentially it's just a time sink. Can you put in enough time? I usually think achievements where it's just like a sheer time sinks are kind of boring, but I mean, I get it. It's understandable. I am much more excited to do like achievements where it requires you to like play the game in a different way than you would otherwise normally, but that's just me.
This is the video game equivalent of dumping breadcrumbs into your mouth after finishing your burger, which can taste good or bad depending on how full you are. Side content should always be a supplement to already great gameplay, rather than something to just prop up a hollow experience. But what if your whole game is a hollow experience?
Oh.
Well, we have a term for that, and that's called online multiplayer.
Oh, man. Yeah. Sometimes it feels hollow, but other times it feels pretty good when you win. I mean, I don't know. That's completely up to each person to figure out what they value out of a game for any given thing.
Wow.
Guys, we're not very good at this game.
Obviously, in reality, online multiplayer games are not just hollow experiences. That's a joke, but they can teeter on being too static. They rely on the fact that people will be playing their game consistently.
Yeah.
So as long as you have people to play with, you can play the game forever. So many games have arrived and then died a year or two after, simply because of the fact that no one wants to keep on feeding into their lacking gameplay loops.
Oh yeah, I forgot this game sucks, lol.
So, on one hand, you have these games like League of Legends, CSGO, and TF2 that have these massive communities that have been playing the game for hours each day for nearly decades.
Yeah.
And you also have these absolutely bone-dry games where you'll be lucky to even get into a match without a friend to play with. Multiplayer games have the potential to be the most replayable games, and also the least replayable.
I mean, essentially just like live service games. I mean, multiplayer, live service, they're kind of the same, more or less.
You get in a groove of learning and experimenting and creating new results. That is when multiplayer is at its peak. And it's on the developers to make sure.
When you are actually growing and learning the same game, but in a new way, that's like some of the best feelings that you can get if you like value that in multiplayer games. You know, you're showing like FPS multiplayer stuff. So yeah, and Rainbow Six no less. You know, this game is essentially what do you call it? Like a tac shooter, but with like a multiple layers. It's not like CS or Val where it's just like on one flat plane, a bunch of halls and corridors and shit. It's like you can shoot through the ceiling, like multiple levels of the house. Like that's kind of complicated.
That they provide for their die-hard fans. Both TF2s especially. I mean, it seems that they've just now started to realize that people actually like to play their games. So we got multiplayer servers back for Titanfall,
Yeah.
and teased with a summer update from Team Fortress, only for it to just be some more hat crates.
Ah,
I
lame.
know I got my shit, okay. Yep. And then... Oh fuck!
Games don't always have to be about the product itself, but the friends you play with.
A waiter.
Oh yeah, this is very true. Like if a bunch of friends are just together and ready to play like whatever, you can get together and have a blast playing like a whatever shitter game. Like you get together, play Uno, Monopoly, what is this, Phasmophobia, I think? Maybe not. Among Us.
More toddlers, please.
Yeah, like games like this are like, what was the phrase? I think it's like games that fall into this category sometimes are like fun with friends, but not so much by yourself. Like honestly, I think playing like Helldivers 2 solo is like really bad. Well, not bad, but like it's not fun to me. I think Helldivers 2 actually is like a fantastic game as long as you have other people to play with.
Online PvP games are always more fun with friends, but that often comes with the burden of frustration and competition as well. Co-op is a good middle ground between the chaos of online bullshit and the immersive and focused nature of single player.
I mean, yeah, but you could get just as competitive in these like co-op shooting games and whatever. You know, it's like, oh, I did more damage, I got more kills, and you know, it's just a different way to be competitive.
I find games with co-op modes to often be the most replayable, because it means that they both have a near infinitely replayable way to experience it with friends, along with a solid way to navigate it solo as well.
Nice.
Great co-op games have a simple yet exciting gameplay loop. Shoot enemies with your friends, explore with your friends, or just do whatever the fuck you want with your friends.
Yeah.
When a co-op game knows when to sit back and just be a vessel for friendship rather than a constant blaring source of stimulus, then it's doing its job right.
Yeah.
What was that?
I'm scared.
Oh, that's you chewing. Wow. Okay, don't do that again. Goodness. When a game is an absolute classic, a remake or a remaster can create some differences in replay value. Firstly, for all the people who have already played the original, it's a gamble on whether the game is even worth playing because the differences might not be striking enough.
Mm-hmm. Oh, what, $80 versus $5? What was this? Is this the original game and this is like the remaster?
What could also be the case is that the new version is too different from the original, and sacrifices some aspects that made it fun back then. Halo CE's remaster created way too much noise on screen, which was a big stretch from the simple yet creative visuals of its previous version.
Wait, let me see that again. Where was that?
Halo CE's remaster created...
Oh yeah, there is way more. I would say it's not like visual clutter. It's more like the scene itself is just more busy. It's like the same argument for like why Transformers are just like really hard to watch. Like if you look at the Transformer cartoons, like back in the day, they were very simplistic looking, and it was like kind of easy to understand. Like all the transforming, it's like the arms go here, they mush together, the head flips down, and the doors like are their chest, and the doors go back, and then they go wah, wah, wah. But if you look at like modern day Transformers and you actually look at them transform, like it's a visual like masterpiece to think that someone like figured out like a way to like make all these parts like congeal and transform in from like a car or some shit into like a humanoid thing. Like it's it's really nice to look at when they're standing still. Whenever you put those motherfuckers in motion and in fight scenes, it just becomes like staticky, and you don't know if a leg is an arm, is a foot, is a hand, is a head. Did he just tear that guy in half? How did he do it? It's hard to watch because there's too much shit to look at. But I think that's what he's like getting at on here. Like, I mean, he just, the button in Halo CE, you hit a button and it immediately goes back to the old graphics. It's like, wow, these are way more simpler graphics back in the day.
Created way too much noise on screen, which was a big stretch from the simple yet...
Yeah, like, look how simple this is. This is so easy to look at and view on the eyes. Like, the most complicated thing to look at is, like, the dang elite over here that's, like, his shields are, like, about to crack or some shit.
Creative visuals of its previous version. Halo 2 Anniversary Edition fixed the cluttered visuals, and had beautiful cutscenes to boot. Again, though, the game is just not worth paying extra for if you already own the original. Remasters usually end up being the best way to play games, whether it be because you're on a new platform, or it's just a cleaned up and modernized version of a game you already love.
Yeah, if it's a well done remaster versus I forgot like what the difference between was, like, remaster and remake. Yeah, but there are some games that have been remastered, but there was almost seemingly nothing changed to it. Most recently that comes to my mind is like Battlefront. Like the old OG Battlefronts that got remade. You put the stills like side by side together. It's like, what did you guys fucking change?
But remakes are a whole different beast. Remasters can have drastic changes, but you're still playing the same game. If you're playing a remake, it can often be a completely different game, and translating a game into a new form, developers really have to take intention into consideration. It's definitely okay to clean up some bloated parts, but there is such a thing as an overcorrection. Overall though, remakes and remasters too can either create a new way to replay a favorite game, elevating it to new heights, or they can just make you realize why
Silent Hill Ranch. Silent Hill Ranch.
You don't go back to play those games in the first place.
Comic fucking Sans. Yeah.
Games don't always have to be replayed though. The enjoyment you receive from finishing the game can be enough, and if your memory of the game is sufficient, you don't have to go back to play it again or collect everything. A lot of games know that experiencing everything isn't the intended way to play. For the average player, massive games like Elden Ring and Red Dead Redemption 2 have just so much content that just going right to the...
I still haven't gotten around to playing RDR2 yet. I need to. But yeah, like games that I've played over and over again, I seemingly seem to always go back to, what is it? I think I've played Assassin's Creed Black Flag like 3 or 4 times now. What else? I think I played Skyrim like 3 times. I'd have to like look. I played Doom Eternal like 4 times maybe. Jeez, that's a game and a half.
The end and stopping there will get most players a more satisfying experience. Although, with the story of these games, it is fun to go back and try and catch hints once it's over, because you'll be able to appreciate all these little tidbits of information that flew by your head when you didn't know where the narrative was headed.
Like, I think this is pretty true of, like, movies, and one of the, 2 movies come to mind for me. Movies that I think get better with each subsequent watch up until, like, a point. I think Inception did a great job with the entire just watching it once and then going back and realizing, and then like let's say you're like halfway through it, and it's like, oh, they're on this layer, but on the other dude's dream they're on that layer, but then we go all to sleep again, and it's like, oh shit, we're on another layer, but then they're stuck on this part right here, which is like a second, and then this part right here, and then you go back, and it's like you realize what happens in Inception on like subsequent like playthrough, or not playthroughs, watches. And I don't know, for me, I think it just makes the movie even better. And the other movie was what was it, like Batman Batman Dark Knight, going with the Joker. Man, that movie was awesome to watch, like over and over again. Just to see like all the little hints in the foreboding and the foreshadowing to in the references to like things that happened in a previous scene and things that are about to happen. Yeah.
Story is usually the least replayable part of a game, though, so skippable cutscenes is always a good option. The last thing you want a second playthrough to be is tedious. It should feel like diving headfirst back into a familiar world, rather than just dealing with monotony.
Yeah.
It's just a nice option for people who want more time with great games. For me personally, though, one of my favorite kinds of game is the kind that cannot be replayed. Well, of course you can technically replay this style of game. It's not like they lock you out of playing it. That would be stupid. Most unreplayable games, once you load them up after beating the game, there's not really anything new to discover, because beating it usually comes through knowledge. A half step towards this would be the Soul style of games, or roguelikes, where they have traditional gameplay, but so much of the experience is about learning that progress is knowledge, and vice versa.
Yeah.
A game that completely cannot be replayed is one that relies entirely on knowledge to advance gameplay. The best two examples of this specific type of game, and probably two of my favorite games ever created, are Outer Wilds and Return of the Obra Dinn.
I haven't played either of those games. Maybe I'll go get them on Steam.
Both of these games use mystery to an incredible effect, driving player engagement through ambiguity and discovery. As you keep playing, you'll learn more about how these worlds work, what clicks and what doesn't, and it's a mentally rewarding experience to finish. Of course, once it's complete, you can never experience it again. There's a few silly achievements, but they're completely separate from the main game, and more of an afterthought. To me, this is the most special type of game. Even though they're heavily curated and thoroughly tested experiences, they all feel so unique to me. All of the discoveries I made were my own, even though the games guided me towards my conclusions.
You know what game series did this for me? I think Mass Effect, like 1, 2, and 3, did this to me. Because, like, when I played Mass Effect, every time I played it, I was like, oh, wow. My standard of, like, single-player stories is now this high. Then Mass Effect 2 come out. Oh, wow. My standard of video game, like, enjoyment is, like, even higher now. And then 3 come out, and it's like, oh, my God, this is awesome. Like, it just kept leveling up each time the game came out, and I was like, wow, this is, like, the new gold standard.
I would not be displeased if more games were like Return of the Obra Dinn and Outer Wilds, because there's always room for one more good game.
Certified
Replay
slaps.
value can be convoluted, tedious, and inconsistent, but it also brings me back to enjoy my favorite games again. 80-hour games and 5-hour games have different levels of both content and cost, but they both have the potential to be equally fantastic games.
Oh, yeah.
One isn't necessarily worse than the other, as long as developers put in effort to make their games enjoyable, regardless of subsequent playthroughs, and take the time to make memorable pieces of art. I think that every single person has at least one game that they wish they could wipe their memory and play for the first time again, and
Oh, yeah. Like, what game would that be for me? I think Skyrim. Maybe, like, all the Mass Effects. Black Flag. I mean, all the games that I've played multiple times, I wish I could just wipe my memory and just, like, go back and replay them again.
Considering that it's not exactly possible to do that,
Yeah.
replay value is a glimpse into that world. It blends the familiar and the unknown into something that lets you experience a level of fresh content before you become too acquainted with the whole game. A lot of games benefit greatly from replayability, and a lot of other games know when to stop and leave you wanting more. But regardless, when those credits roll, a great game will have you thinking, I want to do that again.
Yeah. Oh, that it? Oh, that was pretty cool. Yeah, dude, that was a good ass video. I like it. I'm a fan. Wait, go back.
How long to beat?
The whole replayable versus unreplayable. I mean, ever since I started like gaming on a PC, because when I was younger, I was like a console bro. I think this was more true when I was younger than it is now, because I don't know, like my taste in games has changed. Like when I was a little kid, I had no taste. I would just eat up everything, and fortunately, a lot of the games back in the day were just awesome. Um, but now, since within the last like couple years or so, um, I don't know. I just don't. I just enjoy games in a different way. It takes more energy to like enjoy a game because I don't know. I'd have to like really examine like why my taste in games has changed, or whether I value like replayability or unreplayability. Like a single standalone video game, like with a one playthrough, and it's like it just wants to tell a story and like be a fucking good ass example of this. The replayable versus unreplayable. I think Shadow of the Colossus was a fantastic game, but I ended up playing like multiple different versions of Shadow of the Colossus. I can't believe I forgot about that. Um, yeah, the very first time I beat Shadow of the Colossus, I was like, dang, this was so cool. Because all you had was like 16 bosses, and every time you beat a boss, you just go back to the center of the map and like try to sun sword your way to the next boss. And it's like, oh, and then once you get there, it's like, okay, you gotta figure out how to beat him. But when I got done with it, I was like, dang, that was so cool. I felt like a little explorer or whatever. But yeah, this is a good video, man. I'm a fan, and I can't wait to see more. So until the next one, guys, that's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you on the next one. Later.